Hi again. You're probably getting tired of the four forms of linear functions. These are the four forms. We had two videos before this one. The first video was a really good introduction to all these forms. What do they mean? What do they stand for? The previous video, I focused on this slope-intercept form and I converted that into these three forms. And on the same video, I focus on this linear combination form. It's called standard form. And I converted it into this one, that one, and that one. Today, I'm going to work with 3 and 4. First, we're going to begin with the point slope form. That's the points, x1, y1. Notice they both have a negative sign. So if this was a plus, the points will be negative x1, y1, okay? And the slope is m. And we want to go into this form, then that form, and then that form. So let's begin with going from here to here. Now, don't get confused and like there are so many rules. It's no big deal. If you are in this form and you want to go into this form, it simply means you need to isolate y. That's all it means. To get into this form, you want all the x's and the y's on the left-hand side and all the constants on the right-hand side. You might say, well, that's a constant, but so as b and a. It's true that b is a constant, but it tells you the number of y's. So if this is 2y's or 2y, this 2 is not a constant, even though it looks like a constant. It tells you how many y's there are. If a is 3, it tells you how many x's there are. There are 3 x's. But this is a true constant. If this says 5, that's all it means. So that's what I mean by the constants on one side and all the x's and the y's on the other side, okay? And of course, if you want to go to this form, it looks just like this one in a sense that all the x's and the y's are on one side, but then on the right-hand side, you've got to have a 1. Not a c, but you've got to have a 1. Which means if you're here, you could just divide across by c to produce a 1 and clean up the mess so you only have x. You don't have like ax or by. You just have x and a y. Remember, this a and b have nothing to do with those a and b's, okay? All right, or that b for that matter. So let's begin. We're going to start with a point slope form. We're going to go into this, then that, then that. Let's go. All right, so I gave you a point slope form. The slope here is 5, and the point is, think about it. You could stop the video. You shouldn't say 1, 3. You should say -1, 3. Because, let me write it in black just so you understand. This is y minus 3 equals 5x minus -1. Remember, the form has to be y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. x1. So, y1 is 3. However, x1 is actually -1. It's not 1. This is not x1. You got to have a minus, which means you do minus negative. So x1 is -1. So what's the point here? -1 comma 3, okay? That's a side note, but I just want to point that out. Now, how do I go into the standard form? I'm sorry, the slope-intercept form. All it means is you need to isolate y. So we're going to move the 3, but first let's clean up this mess. So this is 5x plus 5. And then I add the negative reciprocal to the additive reciprocal to -3, which is +3. So when you add 3 to both sides of the equation, you're going to get 5x plus 8. You're done. But you've got to tell me what are your parameters. My parameters in this case are m and b. I need to know what they are. If you say I am done with this, I need to know what a and b are. If you say I am done with this, I want to know what is a and what is b and what is c. So in our case, we need to know what is m, it's 5, and what is b, is 8. This is called the y-intercept, okay? So repeat the question, here it is. And now we're going to go into the standard form. All the x's and the y's are on one side. Well, that's not hard. Well, let's FOIL or distribute this 5, just like we did here. And then I need this guy to go to the left, and I need -3 to move to the right, right? If you move negative 3 to the right, it gives me 8. If you move this to the left, it gives you negative 5x. I like to begin with x, so I'm going to write negative 5x plus y, but I deliberately wrote 1y because I need to know what b is. 1y equals 8. So a is negative 5, b is 1, not 0. Just because you don't see a number here, it means it's 1, not 0. And c is 8. Done. Okay, last one. How do you convert to the two intercepts form? Well, I'm already here, right? I'm already here, so I'm going to cheat, okay? I'm going to begin with the problem. This is the problem. I always begin with my problem, okay? And then I made a jump to here because I need the x's and the y's on one side. I have just done it, so there is no need for me to redo this to get to here, okay? So here it is. Now, I need a 1. Don't worry about negative 5 and 1. You need to worry about this. This has to become a 1. So divide by 8, divide by 8, divide by 8. Okay? Now, the only thing that is bothering me here is this negative 5. That shouldn't stay there. But don't deal with negative 5 until you have a 1 on the right-hand side. So this is fine. This is fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's not fine. I take it all the way underneath 8, and I'm done. This is your A, and that's your B. Remember, this is called the x-intercept, and this is called the y-intercept. In other words, as points, this should be negative 8/5, comma 0, and this should say 0, comma 8, right? 0, comma 8. 0, comma 8. But I'm not asking for the points. I'm simply asking what is A and what is B. Why? Because whenever you write it in this form, we need to know what is A and what is B. If you write it in this form, we need to know what is M and what is x1, y1. If you write it in this form, we need to know A, B, C. And the last one, if you want to write it in this form, I need to know my parameters, slope, and B. Okay? I'm just doing this so you could see what the points are. Okay? All right. So now the next thing is we are going to start here. We're going to go here, then we're going to go here, then we're going to go here. Okay? So if I start here, to go here, I just need y by itself. So we're going to move this stuff, we're going to move the b. Okay? That's what we're going to do. So, oh, I forgot. I just did this, yeah? I had the Pointslope form, and I went to the intercept form. And you might say, well, you kind of cheated. You jumped from here to here because you have done it. What if I hadn't done this? This means you're going to start here, 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 here. It takes time. Is there a quicker way? Of course there is a quicker way. Think about it. This is the x-intercept, and this is the y-intercept. So why not? Here is my original problem. Why not just find the x and the y-intercepts? So to find the y-intercepts, to find this guy, we don't know this guy. Let's erase it for now, okay? To find the y-intercepts, you set x to be 0. So we're going to set x to be 0. So when x is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 times 5 is 5. So you have y minus 3 equals 5. That means y is 8. That means I found B. And to find the x-intercept, you set y to be 0. So let's do it. This is for the y-intercepts. I got it. To find this guy, which happens to be A, isn't that A? This is B and this is A. How do we find A? Okay, well, no problem. We're going to set y to be 0. So if you set y to be 0, you get 0 minus 3. 0 minus 3 equals 5x plus 1. FOIL here distributes 5x plus 5 equals negative 3. Add the negative 5, you get negative 8. Divide by 5, you get that. So that is your A. So we got my A. I got my B. What else do I want? Nothing. Because I need A and I need B. That's all I need. So plug in A here. Plug in B here, and you're going to get exactly what we just got. Okay? So you really don't have to use the algebra. You could just find the x and the y-intercepts, because these two guys stands for the x-intercept, y-intercepts. Okay, so let's go to the last one. What is the last one? Last one means I'm going to start with the fourth form. X over a plus y over b equals 1. That's what I want to start. And I want to write it in the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form means isolate y. So let's isolate y, okay? Let's isolate y. We're going to move this guy here. So here it is. I took this whole thing and there is a plus here, right? I took this whole thing and I moved it here. And then in order to get rid of negative 3, you could just multiply this quantity by negative 3. Or multiply top and bottom by negative 3. Multiply this by negative 3. Multiply this whole thing by negative 3. I'll do it in red. You could multiply this by negative 3 and multiply that by negative 3. Why? Because negative 3 will remove that negative 3. You get a y. And all you have to do is distribute this stuff. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And negative 3 times negative x over 2 is 3 over 2x. And that is exactly mx plus b. Mx plus b. So m is 3/2. That's my slope. That's my rate of change. That's my steepness. That's my rise over the run. Right? And this is your y-intercepts. B. And the points, if you care to know, it's 0, negative 3. Okay? So how do I get from here to the standard form? How do I go from here to the standard form? They kind of resemble each other. They both have x's and y's on one side. This one and this one. Okay? So start over. I start with the problem. I always start with the problem. I always start with the problem. Okay? So I want to keep the x's and the y's on this side. So all I'm going to do is get rid of this stuff. So I'm going to find a common denominator. Okay? So if I multiply this by negative 3 top and bottom, and if I multiply this by negative 2, I hope I didn't make mistake. Multiply by 2, I get negative 3x plus 2y over negative 6 over negative 6. I kind of went a little fast here. Let me slow down. If I multiply this, I'll put it in red. If I multiply this by negative 3, and I multiply this by 2, what do I get? I get negative 6 at the bottom. Here it is. And that is negative 3x plus 2y. Here it is, equals 1. And I just cross multiply. Remember, there is a 1 here. So you could say 1 times this stuff equals 1 times this stuff. So 1 times this stuff is exactly this, equals 1 times this stuff, which is this. Okay? You're done. You could say A is negative 3, B is 2, and C is negative 6. Because this is in this form. AX plus BY equals C. However, you could stop. You could literally stop right here. But I don't like 2 negative signs and 1 positive, so I'm going to multiply the left-hand side and the right-hand side by negative 1. So negative becomes positive, positive becomes negative, and negative becomes positive. I like this form better. This is not wrong, but this is, I think it's better. It has 2 pluses and 1 negative versus 2 negatives and 1 plus. In this case, A is 3, B is negative 2, and C is 6. If you decide to stop here, that is your A, negative 3, B is 2, and C is negative 6, which is the opposite of those guys, okay? So, last one, and we will finish. Last one is to go again from the intercept form, this one before the red, into what? The point slope form. I need the slope, and I need a point. As a matter of fact, I don't just have 1 point. I have 2 points. I have a point called 2, 0, And I have another point called 0, comma, negative 3. I chose 2, comma, 0. So I have a point. I know the slope. The slope was 3/2. You might say, well, let's say we didn't do this. How do I know the slope from here? Good question. Okay? Remember, the graph of this is simple. It's 2 here and negative 3 here. So this rise is 2 because you're going from negative 3 to 0. So that's 3, sorry. And this run is 2 because you're going from 0 to 2. So the slope is 3/2. Now you say, well, I don't want to graph this and waste time. No problem. You have a point, 2 points, don't you? My 2 points are 2, 0, 0, negative 3. Here they are. 2, 0, 0, negative 3. Can't we find the slope? Of course I can. Let's go this way. 0 minus negative 3 over 2 minus 0. 0 minus negative 3 divided by 2 minus 0. And isn't that 3/2? So we know the slope is 3/2. So the point-slope form, you need the slope and you need a point. Well, I know the slope. And not only that I have a point, I have 2 of them. I have this one and I have this one. I can choose. I like 2, comma, 0. I always run away from negative signs. There is nothing wrong with picking this to be x1 and this to be y1. I just prefer the points that don't have negative signs. Okay? So that's your points. That's your slope. Plug in x1 here. Plug in y1 here. Plug in the slope here. And you'll be done. And that is exactly what I did. You have a point. Excuse me. You have a point. And you have the slope. Here is the slope. X minus x1. Y minus y1. It's very quick. Okay? There isn't much to it. I hope you try not to memorize this stuff. It's all common sense. Just ask yourself, what do I have? Where do I want to go? Now, generally, and I'm going to conclude with this, generally, we really don't need to convert one form into the other. Anytime you have any of these forms, anytime you have any of these, let's say I have this form. I can do everything I want with this form. I can do everything I want with this form. I can graph. I can answer any question I want. I can do anything I want with this form. I can do anything I want with this form. Generally, you don't have to convert. But the reason I'm doing this is for 2 reasons. One is to practice algebra. We did a lot of algebra, right? A lot of algebra. And number 2 is to know how to move between forms, even though they're not always needed. So I'm going to conclude this video. And I think this is the last time I'm going to talk about converting the 4 forms. Take care.